Well, hello Into the Fold listeners. This is Jeff the editor with a quick note about this bonus episode that you are about to hear. Juliana and I got to sit down with our friends Spencer and Jess over at Twi-Lit Pod recently and record a very special crossover which has now been released on their channels. And I'm just realizing we forgot to announce that on our most recently recorded episode, so apologies for that. We wanted to make sure that our listeners didn't miss out on it, so we figured we would just go ahead and drop it here. So just a few quick things before we get started here. First of all, since this is a crossover of two shows about two different literary universes, there are discussions of the Twilight novels as well as the Greciaverse at large. And as our regular listeners will know, we try to keep it spoiler-free up to the point of the chapters we're discussing in each episode. So if you're one of the people who has been reading along with us, this is a little bit of a spoiler warning for both universes. The Twilight books have been out for some time, so I don't know if we really need to put a spoiler warning for those, but just so everyone is clear, there is full discussion of the Twilight universe and the Greciaverse. You might notice a little bit of a difference in audio quality because they use a different program to record and edit the show, and we did have a slight technical difficulty in the middle, but we were able to regroup and thankfully didn't lose anything. So if we sound a little bit different in this episode, that would probably be why. And finally, our regular listeners will know that we censor curse words on our show to keep the E rating off there, but since Twi-Lit Pod was the one to edit this episode, there is profanity that is not censored. So there will be an E rating on this episode, and you have been warned. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our crossover with Spencer and Jess of Twi-Lit Pod.
Your electric glow is all I feel.
All right, let's get going. So welcome everyone to a very special episode of Twi-Lit, because today we are not just talking Twilight, we are talking to Jeff and Juliana from the wonderful Into the Fold podcast, a Greciaverse podcast. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
Oh,
I'm doing
good.
so great. I am so sleep deprived and so excited. I have like that manic, anxious, excited energy, and now I want to talk about books.
I'm glad,
so
because that's exactly
excited.
what we're doing. This has been a long time in the making.
Yeah.
You two have got us to read the main series. I've just started Six of Crows.
Yeah, Shadow and Bone. And
Shadow and Bone.
Ooh, you just started Six of Crows? Oh, wow, you're in for some fun.
I know. You guys are directly responsible for me crying at least 3 or 4 times. And
I will take
also
responsibility.
many purchases
Yeah.
at Barnes & Noble. But I'm
Oh, yeah.
so glad to have you guys on. And so I just want to start, if you guys could just kind of briefly explain your podcast, and then also, what is the Greciaverse?
Yeah.
Okay, big questions.
I know, that's
It
a
is,
lot.
It's a lot, but yeah.
It's okay. We are going to answer your questions. Juliana, should you go first or should I?
I was
go
going to say,
first?
I'll take the podcast and you take the Greciaverse. Does that sound good?
Okay, cool.
Okay,
cool,
we'll
cool.
split it that way.
Okay.
So Jeff and I are the two hosts of Into the Fold, which is, like you said, a Greciaverse podcast, which is the lovely universe created by our fabulous author, Lee Bardugo. And we just are kind of reading the Greciaverse books in a book club style. What are you doing, Jeff?
What are you talking about?
Did you just like flip me off?
No, he gave a little praise
believe me,
to the...
if I flip
Wow.
somebody... Yeah.
I was like,
It's
what?
like-
I was like,
Well, I'm not going to... I have a drink at hand, but I'm not going to pour one out for Lee Bardugo because it's going to get all over my laptop if I do that. So I was
that's
just
valid.
like blowing her an invisible kiss.
Okay, I'll take that as long as you don't flip me off.
Do
that's
not
fine.
let me distract you. Talk about our show.
Okay, fine.
Don't let him
Fine.
distract you. Keep going.
That is a big ask for someone with ADHD.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, what do you think? I'm going to solve all the problems of the world today or something? Jesus. But, so we are talking about the Greciaverse. And for people who are unfamiliar with the Greciaverse, you might have seen the show Shadow and Bone on Netflix. And that is the show that coincides with the books that were written. And it's kind of the show's kind of a mashup of the original 3 books and then the following duology, which is the Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom duology, which is very fabulous. And I'm so excited, Spencer, that you're starting to read that, because that is like probably the best parts of the whole Grishaverse, in my opinion, and probably in Jeff's opinion too, I would
That's
imagine.
what I've heard a lot of, is that a lot of people really like the duology maybe more than the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a lot of that, you hear a lot of that actually came from, they wanted to start from the beginning because the Shadow and Bone trilogy is what came first. But there was some concern. I don't know if this is just a rumor or if Leigh Bardugo herself has actually weighed in on it, but I think there was some concern that if they just started with that, since it's not as popular as the Six of Crows duology, that enough people wouldn't tune in to really give it a shot. So they had to build in at least a little bit of the Six of Crows content because they would get a bigger draw if they don't make people wait to meet those characters.
Yeah,
Fair
I can
enough,
see
fair
that.
enough.
Confused the crap out of me though when we started watching. I was like, "What is this? Who are these people? Like, what's happening? I don't remember this."
We did watch the entire show before watching. Or before reading Six of Crows, so I'm like,
I was like, what?
yeah,
Where?
we were
What?
like, who are these people?
Did I hit my head and forget a whole subplot of the series?
Trying to think how to very briefly say anything. Anybody who has listened to an episode of our show knows that we are not people of few words. Get us going and we will keep going.
We have lots of words to be saying.
I've caught.
But
yeah, I've noticed that.
To try to bring it down to a basic understanding of what is the Grishaverse.
Oh wait, Jeff, I didn't even say what we
What?
were as a show. I said that we were talking about the Grishaverse.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
You
I
didn't say what we are as a show?
No, I didn't. I didn't get that far.
Why not?
Because
Tangents.
we kept
going.
We just kept going about the show
Tangents
because we
on
loved
tangents.
the show, and then we were talking
Oh.
tangents on tangents on tangents on tangents. So, listeners, thank you for really just like embracing who Jeff and I are. Initially, this is who we are. We love a tangent. You've kind of got the vibe of like the show already. Here we are presenting ourselves in the raw. So. So what we are as a show, Jeff and I met. I kind of harassed him to the point where I was like, we will be doing a podcast together, unspecified as to what exactly it would be. And then one day I said, Jeff, we are doing a podcast about the Grishaverse. It will be called Into the Fold. Here are all the docs. Here's the Google thing I've created for us. I will meet you on Sunday and we will record. And that is pretty much the general trajectory, is me being like, this is it. Join me or not. And Jeff was like, I'm in.
In her defense, I sent her, in addition to a fan fiction I wrote at her request, for Christmas, I did send her the first Shadow and Bone novel and said, if you get into this, I can get you the others. And when she finished it, her response was a screenshot of her having gone online and purchased every other book that Leigh Bardugo has ever written.
So it's kind of what you guys did to me. I was like, I'll get the first one. We could do this chat. I at least know the first book. And then we were like, we got to push it back now because I got to finish the series before we have a chat. We got to know what happens. I got to at least finish the trilogy.
Yeah, that tracks. That makes sense.
Yeah, Leigh Bardugo is just such a good author, and I'm so excited for you to read Six of Crows because this is where she really like hits her stride as an author. And really just gets into her prime in her actual writing skills. And you are in for a treat, my friend.
Oh, I can't wait.
No shade against all the books because I love every single one of them. But Six of Crows is the book. Like this is the putting this
like,
stuff on the map book.
Chef's kiss.
This was like the magnum opus of the whole thing.
Well, I know what I'm doing the rest of today then. You
Yeah,
got me all excited.
And then you can get a rad Six of Crows tattoo like mine.
Yeah, that is
that's
rad.
Awesome.
It's kind of hard to say.
It really
dope,
is.
though.
Yeah, it's the dregs.
I know, right?
Okay, I'll send you guys a picture of it.
Yeah, please.
I think that's probably the better way to do it.
I keep trying to get Jess to get like fang marks on the side of her neck for Twilight, but she won't do it.
And like sparkles all over her face.
No, I get the
right?
sparkles. I get the sparkles. I call dibs.
Oh,
No, he's
that's
lying
such a
because
good
if he
tattoo.
did say that, I might do it.
That's true. I wouldn't put that idea in her head.
That's fun.
Yes.
I like that.
But
I totally need a Twilight tattoo.
I mean, might get a podcast tattue for our pod. Just get our logo on my chest.
We've talked about doing something like that.
Yeah, I'm on a mission to create a whole like leg like a sleeve for my upper thigh. So I have a lot of real estate that has not been taken up yet.
Oh.
So definitely a Twilight /podcast tattoo is very probable in that real estate area.
Oh boy.
Fancy way of saying she's available.
Yeah.
Are we sponsoring you? Is that it? We're paying you to rock the tattoo?
Hit me up on Craigslist.
Jeff, if, I know it's a hard task, but if you could, at least what the kind of general idea of what the Grecia verse entails, like what is the world that it's in? What are we talking here when we say Grecia verse?
So the world in which these novels take place, the Grecia verse, as it were, is made up of several different countries. And when you do your research, we actually did a whole episode breaking down the Grecia verse before we started reading through the books for anybody who had never read any of these books before. It's a situation where each of these fake countries is based on real countries that exist, but she made up the names. She's made up whole cultures. She's made up like what their governments are like, what the base religion is, what their economy is like. And as for what is a Grecia, since it's the Grecia verse, in this universe, they make it a point of saying this is not magic, because it's a thing you have to be born with a natural ability to do, but you still have to learn how to do it, and you can be good at it or bad at it. So they call it the small science. And just to keep it simple, at the beginning of Shadow and Bone, what you learn is if you are found to be a Grecia, which they find out by sending examiners to test children, very friendly, very safe.
As you do, yeah.
You are, exactly, as one does. You are brought to, at least in Ravka, which is where most of the action of the first 3 novels takes place. It's a country that's very, very Russian-based. But in Ravka, if you are found to be a Grecia, then you are brought to the little palace in the Ravkan capital, and you are trained to use your ability to serve in the military, basically. And that's just how Ravka treats Grecia. In different countries, the more you read through the series, what you learn is that part of what separates these countries is how they approach and look at Grecia. Like in countries like Kerch, they treat them as indentured servants. In Fjerda, they are very, very religious, so they treat them as abominations, and they round them up and they literally burn them.
Not the nicest folk.
Very, very fun. Very safe. It's a great place to grow up, Fjerda. But in Shadow and Bone, to set up the universe, it's a very, very familiar trope for a lot of people who read these kind of books. You have a young lady who grew up in an orphanage, and she finds herself in a life-threatening situation that forces her to unleash this power that she didn't know she had. And of course, there have been rumors and prophecies about this kind of thing. She has no idea how to use this power, so she is brought to the capital to train to learn how to use it. People are trying to convince her that she has this incredible destiny that she has to manifest. If only there was a term for that. Her name's Alina Starkov, and she is, poor girl, she is such a great character to get to know. But as you get to know her through these books, you see that she, like any female protagonist in a YA fantasy novel, has got problems, and most of her problems are with men.
Yeah. You got your classic dueling love interests.
Love that. I eat that shit up.
That's just the Shadow and Bone trilogy. As you start to get to know these characters, and she builds in these other duologies, these other novels that connect to this universe, you go to all these different countries, and you see how the world works from different people's perspective. And like any good YA fantasy universe that takes place with a character manifesting their destiny, fulfilling prophecies, and all of that good stuff, you see backstabbing, people fall in love with each other, you grow very, very fond of characters who end up dead. I'm not going to name characters in case people get into this universe, but I think if you've read a book like this before, it's weird if it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. It's kind of frustrating if it doesn't. Like, I'm always sad when they die, but I'm also like, oh, it's weird when no one gets hurt.
Right, or when they, like, bring them back. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
That's a whole other topic.
Like reading through the Harry Potter novels the first couple of times, certain characters died, and I was like, no, that's not fair. And then you read through like the Game of Thrones books, and you're like, is just how this world works.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's weird if we get to the end and everybody's still alive, because that's the whole gig, isn't it? People die, especially the more you love certain characters, the more destined they are to perish.
There's a whole lot more to the Greciaverse to cover, but we'll get into that a little bit. I have some more questions, things to talk about. Like you guys mentioned earlier, your kind of the premise of your pod is Juliana's the newbie to the world, and Jeff is kind of the expert. As our listeners know, our podcast is Jess is a lifelong fan. Yeah, and then I'm the first time reader. So did you guys intentionally rip us off? And how much are you willing to pay for me to get, make this disappear? I will say we do know a lawyer. She's related to a lawyer. So
He doesn't even do that kind of lawyer.
Sounds
well,
like
he's a space lawyer technically.
So, true story. I met Juliana by becoming a fan of the podcast that she has. It's a Harry Potter Happy Place podcast with our friend Melanie. Since we mentioned her several times on Into the Fold, we call her Mel, not Mal. now. But I became a fan of their show, so I became a friend of theirs. We've been able to do some fun stuff for Puffcast together even. So Juliana and I became friends through that. And like she said earlier, it became apparent at some point that we were going to do a podcast. And originally we had this idea that we were going to combine like a love of reading with a motivational fitness type podcast. And we were going to call it something like Running Through the Pages. Like we had cute ideas for segment names. And then it just kind of never got off the ground. But then after introducing her to the Leigh Bardugo novels, as she started to get more and more into them, she came to me and said, you know what? It's this. Yeah. This is the thing we're going to start a show about.
So yes, we did intentionally rip you off, and I will be going to court and suing you specifically. You will not be suing me. I will be suing you. I don't know anyone who's a lawyer.
No, sorry, the bedrock of my speech
I'll do it myself.
That Juliana is liable for at least 85% of ripping you guys off.
Yes, I will take full responsibility. Jeff is not to blame in this situation. I am the villain here. Mwah, ha, 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 ha. And don't know anyone who's a lawyer, but I will stand up for myself in court. Thank you very much against your lawyer who takes space missions or something, whatever this person does.
Yeah, we're not sure what he does either, but he says he's a lawyer, so I believe him.
Okay. I mean, I can also say I'm a lawyer, but
yeah, I guess you can just say anything.
Yeah.
To an extent. Yeah, so we just want to get into, like, do you have a favorite Grecia book? I think you said it was Six of Crows, but is there like a favorite moment, a favorite like part of it that like sticks with you that like kind of really hooked you into the series?
I think for me, it's just like the big story and how well Leigh Bardugo is able to construct a universe. She's very good at universe building and just like immersing you in her story. And I think that's kind of what caught me a lot. And my favorite character is Nikolai.
Easily.
His just as soon as we got him in the story, I was like, I'm like fully in at this point. Like, yes. I love him to bits and pieces. He is my favorite. He's my boy.
Absolutely.
And wow, the sassy comments. I would kind of love to just spend like an hour with Leigh Bardugo and have her like talk through her process of creating Sturmhond and / Nikolai, and just how her writing process of how she comes up with all his little quippy lines, because it must be so fun.
Oh, it's gotta be. He seems like just a fun character to write, because he's definitely a fun one to read. He's just when you get the reveal of what he is, when the Stormhond thing, I was like, what? He's doing what now? And I thought it was like a whole bit by him. Like he was just bullshitting the whole time. It was like, I was so hooked at that point. It was amazing.
Yeah, although I think for you, the hook point was whenever you cried.
Yeah, so
at the end of Storm and Siege, or what is
Siege and Storm.
Siege and Storm.
Yeah, which I think you guys are covering right now. You're in the middle of doing that one.
Yeah, we just recorded today the chapters where they
Nikolai
land in the fold,
reveal.
And then Sturmhond reveals himself to be Nikolai.
Yeah.
He says, "I have brought back the Sun Summoner." Punch.
was beautiful.
Do love that.
Yeah, but mine was definitely at the end of Siege and Storm. It's my favorite line from the whole book. I know I messaged you guys. You had a post. You said, "What's your favorite line from the first book?" And I said, "You can never have too much champagne." That was. I am gonna edit that.
Which is true.
My favorite line from the first book is Alina shouting, "It's Butter Week."
Oh, that's a good. Yeah.
Yes, we got so stoked.
Because you have no idea what Butter Week is.
She
just yells, "It's Butter Week," and you're like, "What? Okay." I guess we're in Wisconsin now. I don't know. But
oh yeah, I guess that'll work.
Oi. Oh yeah.
But,
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But my favorite line from the whole series is "Our story has no end." Or there is no end to our story. Got me. Just I love that sentiment. I think it's glorious. It's beautiful, and it's just a sweet moment. Such a sweet moment. Because that whole last third or last quarter of Siege and Storm, where the siege happens,
everything
just
happens.
boom.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot at once.
I immediately went and got the next book. I was like, holy crap. I messaged you guys, I think, on Instagram, oh God, I'm crying.
It's so good. Oh my goodness, yes, it's so good. That I will say that one of my critiques for that last book is that last part happens so quickly, and I kind of wish it was dragged out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just it's so good. I'm so excited for you to read Six of Crows. You're gonna love it so much, and there's so many good lines like that as you go forward, especially once you get to King of Scars and Rule of Wolves. You're gonna get some of those hard hitting, deep quotes that are really gonna smack you in the gut. It's gonna be
so
great.
Excited to read those ones.
Yeah, we're
because you figure out pretty quickly. She writes excellent dialogue for all these characters.
Oh, she's so good at writing
and
dialogue.
She's not afraid at all to tackle things that are difficult to discuss with these characters. So it becomes clear that in a way, this is probably her working out these things that are hard to talk about through these characters, and she gives them excellent lines. But I think a lot of her best dialogue goes to Nikolai, and he is so heavily featured in the last two books of the Grecia verse that some of the best lines come there simply because she gives them to him.
Yeah.
He just provides so many great opportunities for good dialogue.
Absolutely, because I think your favorite line is when they're talking in the secret base.
He's talking about stars or
they're looking at
what it was called.
Yeah, but it's the line is something like is love just suffering and longing for something that you'll never have, something like that.
Oh yeah,
butchering it completely.
No, that was definitely whenever I started crying. Now I'm wondering. I know for sure I screenshotted that.
But they're great books. Obviously, you guys can tell by how excitedly we're all talking about this series on a Twilight podcast that we highly recommend it. And it's my go-to to tell people who are, rereading Harry Potter again and be like, or
you can
read this new series because I think you'll like it. It's really good, and it's YA, but it feels more adultish. It feels
it's definitely more A than Y.
Yeah,
is what I tell people. It's YA. Like Twilight feels more Y than A.
Yes,
the Grecia verse feels more A than Y.
Yeah,
great way to put it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely stealing that.
Fun fact, I didn't know about the Shadow and Bone trilogy until I had already read the Six of Crows duology. I had no idea. I was walking through the YA section at the library, and I saw Six of Crows and thought, oh, that's a fun title. So I picked it up and thought, oh, this is a fun cover art. And then I read the premise, and I said, you know what? They took Suicide Squad, and they put it in a Dungeons and Dragons-esque kind of universe, it feels like.
Sold.
And I gotta read this. And the funny thing is, I wasn't lost at all. And apparently I'm not the only person who did it this way. I did it by accident. If I'd known the Shadow and Bone trilogy was out there, I would have gone back and started from the beginning because in that way I am a little bit of a purist.
I read
Six of Crows because it was the only one I knew about.
I actually almost did that as well. The first book that I came along that I heard about was Six of Crows, and I put that on my TBR list. But then you told me about Shadow and Bone, so then I realized and I read it in the correct way.
Well, and I had seen that cover. I'd seen the book around. I hadn't no idea what it was actually about, but I'd seen Six of Crows. I'd never remembered seeing like the cover of the Shadow and Bone. But then you were like, the Six of Crows, that's in the same universe. I was like, oh, that book is? It's weird. It is weirdly more popular. And like, yeah, I can see how you would end up reading that one first.
You know what's funny is if you go, I don't know if it still looks this way, but the last time I was on the Grecia Versus website, if you go on there, when it breaks down these different sets of books, it says specifically, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, this is where it all begins, this is where we recommend you start. Then it goes to Six of Crows duology, where it says something like, we don't suggest you start here, but you won't be lost if you do. And then when you get to the King of Scars duology, it says, don't start here. You won't understand anything that's going on here because this is a direct continuation of everything else that has happened. You will be hopelessly lost.
Is that the Nikolai-centric book?
Yes, those are. It's not just Nikolai. It's certain characters who become. I'm trying not to, for your sake, since you're about to read Six of Crows, I'm trying not to spoil it too much because you had asked what was the moment that really hooked you in. It was I talked about the way she writes characters, the way she writes Kaz Brecker. It's like you're constantly going this way and then that way with him because he'll do this really horrible thing to remind you, oh, he's a thug, he's a villain, he's a bad guy, you're not supposed to like him. And then they'll have these moments, like these tender moments he has with certain characters that he doesn't entirely hate. Or when you get his backstory, which rips my heart out every time I read it. Last year we actually talked about Six of Crows.
That's my reaction to his backstory.
On that pretentious book club. When we were on that pretentious book club last year, we talked with them about Six of Crows, and what I said to them was, thank goodness they took his backstory and they break it up instead of just giving you all of it at once, which she does that with several people's backstories. But thank goodness she does it that way, because if I had to read that whole backstory from beginning to end, by the end of it, I don't know if I would be okay. Like somebody would have to check on me.
Oh my goodness.
I feel that. Yeah.
It's sad.
But
he's so complex because I mean he tells you what's up. Like he tells you he says all these incredible things. Like, I'm not going to not giving too much away, but I got to give you this one line because it sums him up perfectly. If you convince people you're a monster, you needn't waste time doing every monstrous thing. That sums him up perfectly.
Ooh, that is
He'll do the bad stuff if he has to, but it's not about doing bad stuff because he enjoys it. It's about convincing people that he will if he has to, because intimidation is the key to succeeding in his business.
Right. I like that a lot.
Seems way more complex than the TV show version of him.
As it tends to be.
Yeah.
True, but to be fair, we are just getting...
Yeah, he is the Kane.
We're just getting there with him and the other characters. Like, when we start to get into the real... Like, when we move past the Shadow and Bone trilogy and into the Six of Crows action, which I have every confidence we'll get there, that's when you're going to start really seeing, and it might be his interpretation, because people have also said Ben Barnes's interpretation of the Darkling is much, much softer.
Yeah.
Than the one in the book. And
I have some things to say about the show and the Darkling.
He's got puppy dog eyes. I can't hate
but he's
somebody.
so handsome.
He's so
eyes,
handsome,
I mean,
we
come
can't
on.
get over it.
It's hard to watch.
He looks like a cologne ad.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's too...
We had a similar issue with A Discovery of Witches, which is a different... It's more of an adult like fantasy book, but they have a TV show, and the main character Matt in the second season grows a beard, and it is too much. He's too handsome. We stopped watching the show.
We have not finished the
It took us
series.
completely out of
Because
it.
all we could do was talk about how handsome he
Yeah,
was.
just like every scene. Oh my god, why is he so handsome?
You would just turn and be like,
You
oh.
know? We kind of got a little bit of that with the Darkling.
A little
as well.
bit.
Yeah.
Juliana, this sounds familiar, does it not?
Yeah. Well, we have the discussion too, Jeff and I, that we count Darkling in the show as a separate character than Darkling in the books, just because like the vibe is so different.
Yeah.
Between Ben Barnes Darkling and Book Darkling, because for me, Book Darkling is like so inhuman. He's like almost like a zombie ghost kind of like essence to him, because he's so old and he's just like he's so evil. Like he is so evil, but Ben Barnes is like so human,
so warm,
and he's just like I'm a cute person with a nice little beard. Look at me.
But
And I'm
even
going to tee-hee-hee
before
with
that,
David.
even before that, I mean, Leigh Bardugo was giving this incredible talk that we got to watch where she addresses that even
Yeah.
before the stunning and irresistible Ben Barnes took on that role in the Netflix show, there was this huge following for the Darkling and these a whole legion of fans that were shipping Alina and the Darkling together, and she's looking at this
Still exist.
ship that's growing and she's thinking, you guys weren't supposed to like him. It's like naming a character Stormy McBad Guy
Yeah.
and finding out that he's a villain.
He's the Darkling. He's
Yeah,
darkness
it's
incarnate.
his name.
So that brings us. My next question was going to be about the show and how you guys like it. I'm going to say right off the bat, I thought it was good. I enjoyed watching the show. I have one huge beef with it, and it is when
Okay.
That they're all British.
well, that I expected.
Yeah.
That I just like. Fine, that's just going to be every show.
We
They always
also,
do that.
Yeah, tend to watch British television a lot, so I
True.
don't think I actually noticed that.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't either. I just kind of took it in
That's pretty
stride. But it is that when they go horse riding and he's like, "Call me Alexander," and I was like, "No, that is such an important
I-
moment. That is such a
I almost
big."
died.
We were
I almost
screaming.
died.
I was so mad. I was like, "No, that is such an important," because they never call him the Darkling in the
Yeah.
show. Like,
It's such a big point in the book.
Yeah.
It's such a big point in the books. I was so mad when they did that. I was like, why? Why?
blew my mind.
Did I
was like,
share with you my explanation for why?
I hope it was
Jeff,
a
but we might
fucking
not like
accident because I'm mad.
No, see,
Better been a mistake.
when I love and I found other people can probably relate. When I love an author as much as I love Leigh Bardugo, I find myself trying to excuse the choices that were made, and I don't know. There are times with things like that where I don't know if it was Leigh Bardugo's decision to go ahead and instead of making that a thing you find out at the end of it all, I don't know if it was her decision, because what I imagine is she's playing around with things that were book canon, things you can experiment with, because for some people it's not a matter of it has to change because it'll work better. For some people it's just a matter of experimenting, because the book canon will always be what it is.
Right.
So when they adapted it into the show, I like to think that Leigh Bardugo might have been thinking, you know what if I had done this when I wrote this book instead of doing it the way it came out? How would that look? How would it go down? How would people react to it? So she puts that out in the show instead as kind of an alternate timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I
problem
get
is-
that explanation for some things, but that's such a waste
It's
of
such
a
a big
really
point
cool
in the
moment.
book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
She's just going to have to create different moments since we lose that one.
Yeah.
And she's capable of
Oh
it.
yeah, I mean, it's
For
not. It
sure.
doesn't ruin the show. It's just something I really like.
I'll tell you, the thing that I didn't care for, and I don't know why this bothered me so much because it wasn't a big deal, I just didn't care for it, was when they're in the tent and Zoya is all, or no, wait, they're not in the tent, they're back at the palace at that point, but Zoya's like, you know what? I used to keep your bed warm at night. And she's
Yes.
trying to be all seductive. I hated it.
Yeah, I remember you being mad about
Why
that.
did
That was
we
a
have to
big
do
point for
that?
me. I hated that.
It's like, okay, so now we are reducing the character of Zoya Naziolensky to this.
Yeah, she's just
Yeah.
like a sex
Also-
pot. Like what?
Also,
No.
this was one of the stronger points for the Darkling, is that he's one of these characters that's so focused on his one goal to conquer everything that he's almost... I read him as an asexual
I was
character.
gonna say I read him as
Right.
asexual.
Oh,
There
definitely.
aren't that many, and I personally am in favor of more of it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean that honestly, it reminds me of I don't know, like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, where like Voldemort has a child or something, and you're
Oh,
just like,
yeah.
no,
That-
it doesn't fit. Yeah, because he's always
Voldy.
asexual
Yeah.
in my head as
That-
well.
Didn't feel
Yeah,
right.
same.
All the stuff he
For
did
the
with
most
Lena.
part, I will admit I enjoy Cursed Child for the most part.
Same.
I accept that it's different. I'm not trying to argue that it's canon. I would never do that.
Mhm.
Most of
think
it,
the storyline
I
is
like
trash.
it. But that thing,
That, it just
no.
it doesn't sit right
Yeah,
in the soul.
it might-
Yeah,
I do
Yeah.
not care for
because
that.
it makes the
Yeah,
Darkling
the
more
storyline is
evil.
trash.
When he's like
Yeah.
he's kissing Alina and he's doing all he's seducing her, but it means nothing to him. He
Yeah.
couldn't care less. But it's all about the game. And I think that it's so interesting. And like you said, Jeff, like it's cool. I think it's cool to have an asexual character, like something different and not just I guess Zoya has sex with him now. That's okay.
Or even a demisexual character, because that would strengthen the argument of there's actually something to this ship between Alina and the Darkling.
That's a good point.
Because maybe the Darkling he's still an evil Stormy McBad guy character the way he was meant to be, but what if he's the Beast and Alina Starkov is the girl stuck in his castle?
Yeah, no, if they could have done a lot of interesting things with it. I mean, or what they do in the book, it's very interesting. But yeah, in the show, they kind of that tends to be the things that bother me in these kind of adaptations, is these little changes that I'm like, you didn't need that. That didn't really help.
No,
just made fans mad.
Didn't.
But I will say, I think the casting of Mal was fantastic. He's one of the few actually ugly handsome people, because usually when they cast an ugly handsome,
he would definitely be somebody's taste.
Yes, I agree with that too. Yeah, he's definitely someone's taste, but he's not so overtly. He's not. He's kind of in a way he kind of reminds me of Robert Pattinson, where he's like a very specific taste of liking.
Yes,
he's a real specific flavor, and someone out there is like, "Wow, that is the flavor for me." But the majority of the people are like, there's something up with this. He's not hot, but he's not ugly, and there's something just weird happening
It's
here.
the charisma.
Yes.
And that's what it is with Mal, too. That's why he's so suited to the character. He's not conventionally or classically good looking, but he's got charisma for days, and they make that clear from the very opening of the book, which is also what I thought when it's interesting, Juliana said Robert Pattinson. I thought of a different person from Goblet of Fire. I thought of Victor Crumb. Because I'm thinking, based on the description in the book of this character, I could see people being drawn to him, but not because he's classically good looking, because he's just if you're attracted to masculinity, he exudes that. If you just like people who are upright and confident in what they're doing, he's got that too.
Yeah,
that's what Jess loves, and that's why she's dating me.
No doubt.
I am masculinity incarnate. I am more testosterone than man.
Wow.
I can do so
what
many
an honor to meet you, sir.
The honor is all yours. That's for sure. I kind of get the vibe that you guys like the show, but I think book people we're never really gonna love an adaptation.
Yeah,
because it's just
there's no perfect adaptation.
It's impossible.
Yeah, they don't exist.
Yeah,
it can't be done.
Harry Potter's maybe the best, or the closest to being its own thing. The two worlds are kind of their own thing, but they blend perfectly. Or maybe Lord of the Rings is probably the best adaptation ever, but a lot of that is because they cut out a lot of the unnecessary stuff in the Lord of the Rings, because Tolkien will tell you about every leaf on every tree and why it's important.
Boy, and that is why I ain't read those books, and I gotta be honest, my reading list is long enough and it gets longer every day. I'm not gonna.
I do
not intend to. I did get a little bit. I got kind of pissed when I read The Hobbit and thought, really, they split this into 3 movies, but we didn't think to ourselves at some point sooner than the last installment that we should start splitting the Harry Potters so that we can tell more of the story.
Right.
Really?
I mean, I'm sure we're only a few years away from a TV, Amazon or Hulu reboot of Harry Potter.
I hope so.
Probably HBO.
Yeah, probably.
My money's on HBO.
There's gonna be boobs now. It's gonna be bloody. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be so cool.
Wow. Sounds perfect.
What were we talking about? Oh, that's right. So, Grecia, like all great YA fantasy series, has groups, casts, orders, houses, whatever you want to call it, where you can put yourself in it. So I know you guys track it on your pod. You have people put in which Grecia order they're in. Which order would you guys be? And also, if you could explain what the orders are real quickly, that would be great.
Yeah, so we have 3 main orders. We have the Etherealkai, the Corporalkai, and the Materialkai, and then there's suborders within each one. You have the Squallers, who are is the Squallers the air people, Jeff?
Yeah,
Squallers?
Yeah, the Etherealkai are the
I'm not an
summoners.
The
ethereal
airbenders,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually, if you
airbenders,
think about
waterbenders,
it,
and firebenders. Essentially.
Basically.
the small science is really quite a lot like the Avatar: The
Avatar,
Last
yeah.
Airbender universe. The Inferi have firepower,
Mm-hmm.
the Squallers have air, and Tide Makers have power over water. And what's interesting is the reason they call it the small science, this is actually the crucial point of why it's not magic, because what they explain is that magic is essentially conjuring.
Mhm.
You're creating something out of nothing, as it were, or at least you appear to do so. But with the small science, you're manipulating matter that already exists. Like Inferni, they can have power. It's kind of like Pyro from the X-Men universe in at least in the second movie that they made,
Mhm.
where he says, I can manipulate the fire, but I can't create it. That's how you think about it. Squallers
Yeah.
have the easiest time of it because oxygen and air is pretty much always around them.
Right.
Tide Makers are kind of the most dangerous, though, because they start by learning how to manipulate the water that's in front of them. But then once they start growing in their power and understanding Grecia theory better, they can make you drown while standing on dry land, which is terrifying.
Metal.
Yeah, I was waiting for them to get into blood bending.
I'm sure they
Actually,
could do that.
that would be more Corporalkai, because Corporalkai are the ones I
Those are
think,
our heart renders.
Yeah,
and
heart
our-
renders.
Yeah.
are
Heart
thought
genders.
of.
Yeah, heart renders, and you also have healers, and that's self-explanatory.
And heart
healing,
renders can
and-
control someone's heart rate, so they can make people pass out by lowering it, or they can basically
just kill you.
Yeah, make someone have a heart attack. Basically, those
Yeah.
they're pretty badass.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is why they're on the front lines on the battlefield, because they
Mhm.
can just take out the other soldiers. And then the tailors are the rarest of all,
Mm-hmm.
because you get into the character of Jenya, and she's the tailor because she's the only one that just specializes in that. But when you learn about the Corporalkai, what you realize is that it's essentially Grecia Medical School, because when
Mhm.
you learn to become a Corporalkai, you learn a little bit of each of these things, and then you go with a specialty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But all Corporalkai are expected to know a little bit of each of these things. With Etherealkai, you have the affinity that you have, and that's the way of it. And then you have Materialkai, who are the order of fabricators. They have power over solid matter.
Yeah. And there's
have-
not really like a huge distinction though between the Durists and the Alchemy.
Yeah.
It's
No.
very much like they're pretty much just one group. The Alchemy are pretty much just people who like to blow things up.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really
And-
the only differentiation.
Yeah.
Like if you like to blow shit up, then you can be with them. But otherwise, if you just want to like make things,
Yeah, if you want to
Then-
make armor and weapons, you're a Durist. If you want to
Make
make
bombs.
if you want to make like chemical warfare, if you want to make bombs, blasting powders, that kind of thing, poisons, then you're an alchemy. And unfortunately, they tend to get very overlooked because even though they are able to manipulate things in a way that other Grecia and other people aren't able to, since they're not doing badass stuff like drowning people on dry land or making your heart burst like a baked potato in a microwave, people don't consider what they do to be particularly special.
we're the Hufflepuffs of the
Oh.
situation.
Yeah,
here.
they're the
Definitely.
puffs of the Greciaverse.
Yeah, I always
we
imagine.
do a lot of fun things, but we just get overlooked.
Yeah, I imagine them a lot like the MythBusters, where they're just doing crazy experiments.
Oh
having fun.
yeah!
Oh heck yeah, the Mythbusters would make kick-ass Durists.
Yeah, for sure.
That's like Durist after hours, essentially.
Yeah, right.
I just know.
That's free time.
I just think about when I used to work at Starbucks. We used to like when there was no one around, we'd just mix a bunch of the syrups and everything, and just make these like monster concoctions. And I
love
imagine
that.
that's what happens when the Durists don't have anything else to do. They're like, "What can we combine all these materials to make?" And they make like a giant mutant like item that's just like, blah, and like shoots fire out its ass.
Definitely.
Just
Like
be-
if you've ever seen the Owl House, like the Abominations.
never seen it.
Nope,
Mm-mm.
never seen
Watch
it.
the okay. You know what? Watch the Owl House. It's a Disney cartoon with a same-sex couple on it, and it's fantastic.
Brilliant.
Oh, is that what? Oh, it's a Disney show.
Didn't know.
Okay,
You hear
Yes.
about it.
I have Disney
So,
Plus.
Juliana, you said you were a tailor.
No.
I'm a Durist.
Durist.
Durist, that's right. And then Jeff, which one would you be?
I'd be a healer just because I don't much fancy battling or manipulating other people unless I'm doing it to make them better, and I don't really fancy plastic surgery, which is
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
We
I
got
mean, you
that.
gotta have to learn some tailoring if it could help some people to be more self-confident. Like if they have a scar they want to get rid of and I can do that, then fine. But I'm not going to be the person who's like helping people disguise themselves to do the mission. They can learn to do that themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I was a theater kid.
Fair
Stage
enough.
makeup's not that hard.
Yeah, well,
No,
Put some lines on your
no.
forehead.
I
it's
took
fine.
the little quiz and I got Taylor.
That's yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Cool,
I didn't
cool.
take the quiz, but I'm definitely an alchemy. Alchemy?
Okay,
Yeah, alchemy.
Alchemy.
I work in a laboratory for my job.
Oh,
A
okay.
literal chemistry degree.
I have a chemistry degree. And
Nice.
yeah, and
Impressive.
I was reading the website, Greciaverse website. They were
Description.
literally described as lab nerds. And
Yeah. Uh-huh.
working in the lab,
Oh, yeah.
we're often overlooked. So I work in a
Yep.
hospital laboratory, so no one cares about us. But it's fine. I'm not mad.
Yeah, as a other fellow healthcare worker, I'm a dietitian and I work in a nursing home, which is the unwanted stepchild of the healthcare system, shall we say?
Yeah, easily.
I'm very used to being ignored. I know what that feels like.
Yeah, that's not. We have a lab week every year, and then they give us like a backpack or a blanket or something, and then we never hear
Most
from
people
higher
forget
ups ever.
dietitian day. I usually don't get anything on dietitian day.
Yeah,
Also because it's also social worker day, and the social workers are like much more loud and like
yes.
flamboyantly just like present than the dietitians are. We just kind of do our thing and we kind of just like okay, we're gonna do my job and then we'll go home.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
social workers are like, I'm here to coordinate care. Here I am. Look at me. And I'm like, that's not for me today.
I wish everybody listening to this could see the choreography that Juliana was doing, because it's part of how she gets into the show when we're recording.
I always
if
am
it
moving.
sounds like she's moving, she's
It's because
moving.
I am. I'm doing like full. People don't say that you can use eyebrow choreography. I use my eyebrows for everything all the time. I don't understand like how people don't use their eyebrows, because like I'm constantly like going like this or like doing like some kind of like weird eyebrow thing, but like people are like, I don't use my eyebrows. I'm like, how do you not use your eyebrows? Like I'm
Yeah.
constantly using my eyebrows.
Well, working in healthcare
Mhm.
now, especially, we're all masked up. You have to communicate with eyebrows because it's all you got. You got your eyes and your
I
eyebrow.
mean, my eyebrow choreography has definitely increased with the mask increase. Got to smize. I have to smize.
Yes,
have
I was
to-
about to say, like, I've gotten good at doing the eye smile. They're like,
Ooh,
Yeah, for
ah.
those listening, we're making
Oh, yeah.
faces.
They're like, wow, I love listening to people move their eyebrows.
this is the most interesting healthcare talk I've ever heard on a Twilight themed podcast, mostly discussing the Greciaverse.
Shadow and Bone.
Shadow
Yeah.
and Bone. So I do.
Yeah, let's get into a little bit of Twilight.
Yeah, let's get a little Twilight here.
That sounds good.
As about 50 minutes into this conversation. So what is Twilight to you guys? Were you big fans? Were you just trying to get through the Twilight craze? What does the series mean to you?
Jeff, do you want to go first? I think you have an interesting story that you'd like to tell too.
Ooh.
I've brought at least one good Twilight story for you guys. I wanted to make sure I did have at least one.
Awesome.
So most of the books that I have read in general are books that I read from college going forward, because I was terrible about reading when I was all the way up through high school, especially recreationally.
Mhm.
But I was aware of Twilight so much that it felt like I was reading the books even though I wasn't, because everybody was talking about them. And then, of course, I started seeing someone when I was in high school who was really, really into the books, and they said I should read them.
Mhm.
So you do.
Sounds familiar.
I read them. I actually really enjoyed them. And I didn't think at all about what a problematic character Edward Cullen was, or
Yeah.
how many red flags there were in this relationship, especially not when the manic pixie dream girl that I was dating would say that we were just like them, and I agreed.
Oh no.
Man, Jeff, we
Did
had a
not
very
think
similar
about it.
high school experience, it sounds like.
I get the feeling that we did. But it was fun for me because at that, like, I've read the Harry Potter books so many times, I've committed chapters to memory
Right.
almost.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I hadn't read those. I had just consumed the movies and then felt like I'd read the books because my brother talked about them so much. So it was similar to that. But Twilight was something that I was able to actually get in on from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Almost. I think
Yeah.
New Moon was just out by the time I read the first 2 books.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was something that I felt like I was joining in on before it was too late to really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes, this is the story I prepared for you all.
Okay.
So picture it. A place that has been lost to the ages called Walden Books.
Oh, God, I miss Walden Books.
An event that has also been lost to the ages called a midnight release
Yes.
party.
Yes.
Ooh, two
For
ancient
breaking
traditions.
dawn. Yes, these are the old ways. So there I was at Walden Books in the Green Tree Mall for the Breaking Dawn release party. I was there with my friend Mia. I'm going to describe to you what I was wearing that night.
Please.
Beautiful.
Black fedora with a white trim.
Not the fedora.
Black button-up shirt. No, it gets better. It gets better. Black button-up shirt. White necktie. White suspenders. Black jeans. Black Chuck Taylor Converse high tops. And a walking stick with a generic metal handle. Let that image settle for a moment while you ponder the following.
Oh, Jeff.
Okay.
Have I just described any character in this Twilight series that you can think of? Does this describe any of these characters?
Oh, gosh.
Honestly, it
Describes
gives
a
me
lot of
like-
2005.
It gives me like Eric Yorkie vibes at the prom,
Oh. Yeah.
but minus the cane. I feel like the cane is a
Cane-
step too far to be Eric.
I got
but-
the cane at a truck stop and I just got into this habit. I wanted to carry it everywhere because I didn't care if it went with anything that I had in my wardrobe, which it didn't.
This is so you, Jeff.
But here's the thing. I went to this event in this outfit with this cane with my friend Mia, and they had a costume contest. There were, at first, 7 young ladies lined up who looked identical, except for one of them was blonde. We figured out what was going on, and my friend Mia peer pressures me into joining the costume contest, and I said, I don't look like a character. What am I supposed to do? And she said, just tell them you're Carlisle. They'll love it. I thought it would make people laugh if I said that.
Yeah.
So I get up there. And as we go down the line, everybody says who they are. 6 Bellas, 1 Rosalie, that was the blonde one, and me. I was unprepared. They narrowed it down to the Bella who was the most Bella-esque, Rosalie, and myself. And somehow I won the only costume contest I've ever won without even trying to enter it. And you know what my prize was?
What?
Another cane.
Tell him,
A
Jeff.
t-shirt that was 3 sizes too big.
Of
It
course.
was a 3X t-shirt that says I was bitten, and on the back, by Breaking Dawn.
Glorious. These were simpler
I
Please tell
times.
me
wish I
you still have
had
this shirt.
t-shirt.
Oh god.
I wish I
Ah.
still had
No,
this
he
t-shirt.
doesn't, and I'm mad about that because he's told me this story before, and I'm mad that he doesn't have this T-shirt.
I wish I still had that
That is
t-shirt.
This is the most
What a
2005 story I've ever heard. That is beautiful.
Mhm.
What a time.
Honestly,
Mhm.
like
True. But I don't.
Or like
Just that idea. The
2010-ish.
Walden Books, the mall, a midnight release. Oh, those are
Yep,
simpler times.
yeah,
Oh man.
it's a wild time.
That's
There's a certain
beautiful.
office quote about knowing you're in the good old days
Yeah.
before you've left them that comes to mind.
The
If
goodest
I'm
of
being
days.
Those
honest, though, I
were.
probably would have saw your outfit and been like, "Wow, that guy's cool."
Oh yeah.
I definitely would have thought Jeff
You
was
know,
cool.
the funny thing is I was trying so hard to get people to think that about me back then, and it never worked. But as soon as I stopped trying to get people to feel that way,
Mhm.
apparently people started feeling
That's how it goes. It's
Yeah.
always how it goes.
Yeah,
It's weird how that
it's
works.
a vibe.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a vibe.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But Juliana, were you a big fan of Twilight too?
Yeah, so I got into Twilight because I had a friend who was like super like Taylor. My friend Taylor was like way into YA. Like she read every single YA book that was out there. Like
Mhm.
that was a fantasy YA book. And so she introduced it to me at like a little bit after the first book came out. And so like I was on the train as these books were coming out. Like I remember New Moon. I remember all these books coming out and me going, because my mom would never let me go with Harry Potter or Twilight or anything. We didn't go to midnight releases. We got the book the day after because she would never drive me to a bookstore at midnight. That was just not happening.
enough.
It was just not a thing. So I would get the book the day after, and Juliana in middle school and high school, I look back at her and I'm like, oh, you poor soul, you. Because I read the books and I was like, I am Bella Swan. I want to be Bella Swan. I want Edward. Edward Cullen is the perfect man. I want this relationship for myself. This is the perfect example of what a good, healthy relationship is. This is exactly what I want in life from a human being. Flash forward to me reading what's the new one that just came out?
Midnight
It's
Sun.
escaping my Midnight Sun. I literally almost chucked that book through the window like 5 million times because I was like, Edward Cullen is a fucking manipulative asshole and he is using Bella. What the actual fuckity McFuck?
The story hits
Like-
different in
It
2020.
really does. It really does.
I was ready to like jump into that book and be like, you are a jerk. You need to stop. You cannot watch this woman from across the room without her consent. What the fuck are you thinking?
The man brings WD-40 to, or no, he doesn't. He brings oil to grease her window
Yeah,
so he can
probably
sneak
WD-40.
in better. Like,
Yes!
what is happening?
That is some Criminal Minds level
And
nonsense
he also
right there.
acknowledges how bad it is.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
makes it
and he's
worse.
like,
I
it's
feel
not
like.
because of you. I'm only doing it. He loves to manipulate a situation. He's like, you almost died, but it was because I love you. I'm going to murder this. I literally, I almost did not finish Midnight Sun because I was ready to just smash it through windows constantly.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did I read Twilight and think that this relationship was like great? And like the problem is too is that Midnight Sun is her like revised like
right.
PC. I'm trying to make up for the Edward that I created in the first book's version. And I'm like, oh my God,
it?
I wanted the original Edward and I wanted him so bad. And that is very, very, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good.
We're in the middle of
See-
it right now reviewing it, and it is tough because she started writing it back in 2008,
Yeah.
and then it
Yeah.
was leaked and all this stuff, and so she's just published it in 2020, but she started it before, but she had time to fix some of these things, like especially
Oh,
if
yeah.
now it is 2020, you're about to release this, maybe not, maybe let's change some things, or like I don't know what you would do at this point because Edward is just Edward. It can't
I think
change
she
that
could
much.
only backpedal so much, and she
Right.
like tried really hard to backpedal,
Yeah.
and really hard to make up for the fact that he's just a manipulative, terrible person.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, he's a manipulative, terrible person, and you can't like explain him out of it. It's
That's
just like
true.
he's creeping in corners. He be telling her that he's trying to kill her because he loves her, and that it's her fault because she's the one getting in trouble and causing all these issues, and it's her fault she smells that way, and he can't control himself.
I mean, like, to be fair, he is a literal monster.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
valid.
But it's
The problem is that middle
rough.
school Juliana wanted
right.
Edward
right,
very.
no,
That's
No.
that's the problem, is that I was like, yes, this is the ideal boyfriend for me.
this is how a man
Exactly.
is supposed to treat me.
Right. This
This
is
is
what.
how I want to be treated. I want to be told that I'm throwing myself into a death pool because this man loves me, and it's okay that I land in the hospital and almost perish because he loves me. And he tells me that it's my fault, but I love him.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's complicated.
Can I be
It's-
honest about something
Mhm.
though? Midnight Sun, my reactions were pretty much identical to Juliana's.
Mhm.
It was for me. It was more instead of saying stuff that I already knew about Edward Cullen, the character, it made me think, what was wrong with me?
Right.
Like not what was wrong with this guy, because it's obvious what was wrong with him. Like what was wrong with me when I read this. On the other hand, when I read Life and Death,
Mm-hmm.
What is-
I
haven't
enjoyed
read
that.
I
Oh,
enjoy it too
yeah.
much.
We reviewed it. We loved it. Female Edward. It's the gender swap version, Julie.
Oh, I haven't read
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a fun read. It is a bit. There is some added content to it, so it's not just
Mm-hmm.
Twilight, but gender swap, but that's mostly what it is. But Edith, the female version of Edward, we like her so much better. I don't know. It comes off
way better.
Way
It comes
better.
off way better.
Maybe that's problematic to say. I don't know, but
But just
I think it's because Beau Swan comes off
Terrible
as
name.
this little cinnamon roll
yeah.
character, and he's so soft and squishy and lovable. And Bella Swan comes across as really
Void of any
you
personality.
don't see what's going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely you get like a different character dynamic in Life and Death than you do in Twilight. Even though it's just supposed to be the same story in reverse genders, but it comes off
It
differently.
hits different. But yeah, so Meyer's written the story of Twilight 3 times basically, and every time she's included the worst part, I think, of the whole series, and that is Edward says at one point the music peaked in the 50s, got progressively worse until a mild resurgence in the 80s, and then just went bad again. And it's
Terrible take.
the worst take I've ever heard. It's such a bad opinion, and it's in all 3 of these versions of Twilight. And Meyer had so much time to change it. She had every reason to change it, and yet it's still there, and I'm still mad every time we read it. But
It must be a very hitting home point that she personally holds
Right.
inside of her soul to carry it over to 3 different iterations and have different characters saying it.
Yeah.
yeah. Also,
She really must feel this this is a hill that she shall die on.
it really is.
This is something that she a cause that she shall petition, and it
For
is
real.
that music sucks now.
She's
apparently.
so wrong.
So wrong. It's such a wrong, opinions, there's no right or wrong answer, but that is a wrong answer.
Absolutely wrong.
Obviously, it's not going to be Midnight Sun, but a favorite Twilight book
No.
or movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which one is it for you guys?
In both
Oh,
cases,
gosh,
it's
this-
Eclipse.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting.
Oh, because I think
know.
New
That's at
Moon
the
is
bottom
like
of
the
my
fan fave. That's the one you hear about a lot. But I like Eclipse too. Why does it work so well for you?
For me, it's just okay. With Eclipse, we have now settled into this universe. If
Mhm.
you have gotten this far, then you are obviously willing to take the journey of Bella has questionable taste in men, but she is at least committed to somebody who loves her in a way that's maybe not so healthy. But you have now agreed to take the ride, so here we go. We've set up. Here's how vampires work here. Here's how werewolves work here. You now have this. This is where the Team Jacob and Team Edward thing
Yeah.
really came
Yeah.
in.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I remember all the
in the
stickers
next-
and the posters of this.
Yeah, in the
Oh,
next
boy,
book,
wow,
there's
I was
the
eyeing on
marriage
this.
and the thing that makes no sense to me at all that we will not talk about unless you guys really, really wanna.
Whether they have a child.
Yeah, that.
Oh, that old day. Okay, we are back doing it again. This is going to be a fun edit.
Question that we did.
We finished. We're just chatting about Twilight. You guys are big fans.
Mhm.
We're obviously big fans. I did want to ask how you guys found us. Because you
Yeah.
reached out to us to do this, which we really love.
I-
We're so grateful for.
I think I just found you because the Instagram algorithm
Mm.
delivered your profile to me. And I
Mhm.
was like, how have I not listened to a podcast about Twilight? I listened to 40 different podcasts.
Yeah.
Literally, how have I not listened to a podcast about Twilight? And Jeff and I, we kind of have this underlying theme of Twilight in our lives, you know?
Mhm.
It's just kind of like an underlying line of our story as we go forward,
Right.
and a connection that we have, and a connection that really annoys my other best friend and co-host Mel,
Yeah.
who does not like Twilight in any format of the
Oh no.
of the idea.
That's so
No.
2010.
Yeah.
yeah. It's just so she's like, I can't take it. I just can't take it.
Yeah. It does
Easy
make
to forget this, honestly, but Mel is a few years ahead of us.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
she didn't,
Okay.
she wasn't in her prime when
Right.
these books were coming out.
Yeah.
They were a little bit after her. Whereas I remember sitting on my parents' couch and reading New Moon, and just and all the other, I had this one spot on the couch where I would sit and read books. I read all of them on that spot on the couch.
Nice.
Every single one. And I was like, I love being Bella. I love being in her head. And now I'm like, oh, Juliana. Oh, middle school and high school Juliana. There's something very wrong with you, my friend.
Yeah, it's a weird fandom because it's a lot of people kind of recognize there's a lot of problematic elements to it, and also, but it meant so much at a certain time.
Captivated us.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to the festival in Forks, Washington. I'm wearing my
Wow.
hoodie from there.
Nice.
And yeah, it's fascinating. It's just interesting. It's just a lot of people just still love it, and it is. But it's a different energy than like your Harry Potters or like going to like a regular Comic-Con or something. It's much more like personal, it's from your childhood. It's a weird, different fandom where you almost like you don't even necessarily like it now so much as it meant something so much to you at a time, and you're still appreciate.
I think it's
that.
like a lot of nostalgia. I feel like
Yeah.
this fandom is just like very much banked on nostalgia.
Mhm.
And I know especially with the movies, it's a very much so like love-hate relationship. Like me and my friends, we would go to see the movies to purely go and laugh at how ridiculous they were. Like
Yeah.
we had so much fun going to the movies and being like, this is the worst movie in the entire world, and I freaking love it.
Yes.
Well, did you guys see Breaking Dawn Part 2 in the theater?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Who do you think
Oh,
you're
yeah.
talking to?
Well,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think you know where I'm going with this.
Oh yeah. The scene that turns out to be a psych.
Yeah,
Yes.
I somehow did not know about this. I amazingly avoided this moment of pop culture, which
For like
blows
10 years.
for 10 years, including
God.
when we were doing the pod and I was looking up stuff about Twilight. I was writing about it. I mean, I was trying to be spoiler free because I was part of our pod is me predicting what's going to happen and all that. But like, I missed that, and so we have a full video of me just losing my mind. Just secretly filmed me as we watched it.
Yeah.
It's just what. So how was that in the theater? Because I was losing my shit. I was so confused and baffled.
Okay. So
I
here's the
love it.
thing. The younger version of myself would go to certain movies for the joy of taking pleasure in the shock and sometimes tears of others.
Yes.
Example, I went to go see the remake of Halloween that Rob Zombie did a few years ago.
Mhm.
I walked in late. It was the scene where little Michael Myers' cute little kid is murdering the kid from Spy Kids with a log, and this girl sitting very close to where I'm standing is shrieking every time that log makes a thud on this poor kid. So I point at the screen and I go, family comedies are the best. That was me. So, of course, I'm sitting there watching Breaking Dawn Part 2 with my friends because we've committed to this. And by this point, are we as into it as we once were? Not really. But am I a completionist? Absolutely.
Yep.
So, of course, I'm going to go see how they ended all this. And it's mostly teenage girls in the theater. Like when heads of certain characters are getting ripped off and certain characters are dying, and they're all just going, no. And I'm sitting there just, it's like all those gifs of people eating popcorn, watching something exciting
Yes.
happening. That was literally me. I'm just, oh, children.
It's one of
If
the
only you
boldest
knew
moves.
what I know.
Yeah, it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in anything. Like Game of Thrones is famous for doing that, but it's also Game of Thrones, so at some level you're not that shocked. But like when you
Yeah,
think,
it's shocking if people don't get murdered there.
right? Like the Red Wedding was shocking, but it's not like out of the question. But like when it pans down and you see Carlisle's severed head in a Twilight movie, you're like, what? What? I was truly baffled. I went through like every stage of grief.
He really did.
I was angry. I was pleading. I was confused. By the end, I was accepting it.
Carlisle is a great dad, which is the sexiest thing about him.
Yeah,
I mean,
Exactly.
sure, he probably could have just let Edward die of his illness and whatever, but he was lonely, and he owns up to that, and complicated feelings, but he's a great dad for
Oh,
his
he's a
foster kids.
Best character
and
in
that's
Oh,
very
yeah.
sexy.
Yeah. Midnight Sun
Oh, yeah,
makes
he's
you want.
definitely like the best.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, in Midnight Sun, it makes me want more Carlisle. Well, it makes me wish it was a Carlisle backstory book instead of.
Oh yeah,
whatever it
100%.
is.
I'd love that.
Yeah. Like
That's
make
what I
that the
want.
next novella, like the incredibly not so short second life of
Carlisle.
Cullen revisited part 1 through 3.
I'd read the hell out of that.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Novella.
yeah.
It was more like a novella.
Oh, Okay.
She wasn't in it at all. I very excitedly made that joke on our pod.
Excellent.
It was a great moment for me.
That's cute.
That was most excellent.
So just kind of wrap things up. We have our final question that we ask everyone.
Oh yeah.
Team Edward.
Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Where you at?
Team Edward.
I
I was
mean, is
always
this-
Team Edward. I was never Team Jacob. Like, let's be real here. There was no way I was going to be Team Jacob. Like, he was like Taylor Lautner was like kind of hot, and I was like, ooh, maybe. And then I was like, no, I'm an Edward bitch all the way. I am here for him. I am
They
Bella
cast
Swan.
that poor
I am Bella
boy
Swan.
in that movie for one reason only, so you can see the meat display.
Yeah. Taylor
Boys in
Lautner is a
shorts.
meat display. He's
Doesn't he own a
George.
shirt? And
my
the
favorite
audience...
part of the New Moon movie is the fact that they consciously made the decision to have him shirtless for like the entire movie. Like, it is clearly like freezing where they are filming this
Mhm.
thing. Like, it is clearly like really cold, and they're like,
yeah,
Taylor,
that's
you have
why
to keep your
his
shirt off the
nips are
entire
like,
time.
Boing, boing,
Yeah,
turkey's
he's
done.
just like boing, 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 like popping people, like poking people's eyes out left and right, and he's like they consciously made the decision to give him low-rise jeans and no shirt the entire film.
Mhm.
Someone in the costuming department made that decision for the entire
Oh, yeah.
film, and I salute that person.
And to get it his body in right form, he's like starving. He's not eating, and so
he didn't eat, like anything.
So I can't imagine how miserable he was that entire time.
He's like
well, he
eating
has no
5
fat on him
dozen
either, so
eggs
he's,
and
like,
protein
freezing.
shakes
Yeah.
and rocks. Like that's his
freezing, his
diet.
brain is like, blah.
Like
His
I
nips
could
are hard.
I could not make this up. When I remember, this is one of the few things I remember about seeing Eclipse in the theater, is the moment where they have the famous line, "Doesn't he own a shirt?" Several people in the theater were like, "No!"
He better not.
I remember that happening. That happened in the same theater that I was. There was like an audible response from the audience of people being like, "Ah, ooh, ah," when they, or people like, "Ooh."
Now that reminds me. This is one of my other favorite memories. Is the moment in Breaking Dawn. I think it's part 2, where Jacob decides to try to ease poor Charlie into the supernatural by taking off all of his clothes. He's
Love
like,
this.
okay, this is going to be kind of weird, but just hear me out. His clothes
Unzip.
come off, and Charlie's like, whoa. And people in the theater are like, you cretin, why are you covering your eyes? Don't you know what you're looking at? Do you know how much we would love to be you right now?
You have been blessed. Embrace it.
And I'm sitting there silently thinking, yeah, I mean, they've got a point, but they can't show you his third arm, because if you do, then this becomes an HBO project.
Yeah.
and
And like we said, it's also very cold. That's not fair to
Right.
Lautner.
See, I distinctly remember
yeah.
the moment when I learned that Taylor Lautner was also Shark Boy. Like, there was a very distinct moment in my personal history when I fully came to the reckoning that this was the same person playing both roles, and I was like, oh dear Lord, what is this world coming to? What is life? I don't
Yes.
understand the meaning of the world anymore. How? Because his role in Twilight was the first like role I had seen him in, like knowing his name.
Right.
And then I learned that he was Shark Boy, and I was like,
What?
See, people talk about how Matt Lewis, who played Neville Longbottom, went from being an awkward child to being a hot adult.
oh,
But
Taylor
I mean,
Lautner
Taylor
is much more
Lautner,
of a 180.
he was my first exposure to, okay, small, awkward, adorable children grow up to be hot adults that don't need to wear shirts anymore.
You
Yep.
really don't. And you married someone named Taylor.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
didn't know
we've
that. I've
engaged.
not been following the gossip wheel on that one.
Yeah, I just saw a post, and all I remember about it is that she is also named Taylor, so they are truly Mr. and Mrs. Taylor Lautner. So that's fun. I would
True
have fun
story.
with that.
Oh,
The
that's
only other film besides Shark Boy and the Twilight movies I've seen Taylor Lautner in is a movie I expected to hate, and I was wrong. It was one of those ensemble holiday movies. It was Valentine's Day.
Oh.
Yes.
Where his girlfriend is
Oh,
Taylor
yeah.
Swift.
They're
Oh,
actually dating
that's
though,
right.
whenever they.
I
Yeah,
know.
they were dating when that came out.
That's
And what was
right.
hilarious for me is that at the time I believed that Taylor Swift was that person, and apparently everybody else thought so too. And then this becomes like a joke for her of, oh, people think that I'm this person. Okay, I'll make it a character. And then she turns out to be a person with thoughts and feelings,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which younger
Yeah,
me
go
did
figure.
not always appreciate things like that
thought?
as much as I wish I had.
Yeah, I mean, you're
So
talking to
good.
the biggest Taylor Swift fan I've ever met.
Me.
Yeah.
Not him.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Her.
is my brother here? My brother is a high school math teacher in Indiana, and his students got him for his birthday a life-size cardboard cutout of Taylor Swift and put it behind his desk
Wow.
because even they know.
That's
That's where I was gonna say
Beautiful.
my sister's the
Beautiful.
pretty. My sister, actually, no, my sister's friend is probably the biggest Taylor Swift fan that I know.
Uh-huh.
She is the person who, when Taylor Swift comes here, she goes to every single concert that she puts
Mm.
on. Like if it's in like a 4 or 5 hour
Yeah.
driving distance, she's at every single night of every single concert. And I'm like, girl, how do you have the money for that?
Yeah, that's
Right.
expensive.
Yeah, that's a
Literally.
dream to me. I definitely cannot afford to
Because
go.
I make
to-
Jess go.
Yeah.
I do that with my favorite band, the Mountain Goats,
Right.
and
those tickets are
those tickets
relatively
are-
cheap.
yeah, like
They're
25
under-
bucks.
I've never heard
under
of them out
$50.
here.
And so
Why
I go
does
to-
that sound like a band that Bella Swan would try to get Edward Cullen to listen to, and he would just be like, no.
Ooh, music hasn't gotten
Absolutely.
any better since the 20s.
That sounds like you're living in Seattle, there's mountains,
Mhm.
and you're listening to weird, grungy kind of indie rock because Nirvana's from there.
Mhm.
So of course you listen to the Mountain Goats sounds like the kind of band.
yeah, they're like a folk rock band with a lot of emotions, and so am I. I'm not a folk rock band, but I am full of emotions.
You would hope a folk rock band would be full of emotion.
Very sad, Dad.
Honestly,
sad
this
dad
sounds
rock.
like something that I would enjoy listening to. I'm looking up their Instagram right now.
Yeah, I
Is
will
their
warn you.
Instagram Mountain Books Music. There's one Devil House.
Oh, he's
Does that
also an
sound
author,
familiar?
though. So yeah, they have a
Okay, I'm on the right
extensive
Instagram then.
discography.
Yeah. Whenever we first started,
They have
dating, you
candles
said
that
was your
bleed.
favorite band.
What'd you say, Julie?
They have bleeding candles. There's a bleeding candle.
Oh
It's a
yeah,
house
for his
that
new
they
book,
bleed.
it's like a promo thing. Yeah.
Oh, hell.
Yeah, that's
That-
actually
that's
really
dope.
cool. I kind of want a bleeding candle now. I would like it to bleed glitter though. That is my preference.
Ooh, that would be dope.
Me too.
That'd be exciting.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
great music talk on this Twilight podcast. But
Wait,
go ahead.
Jeff, are you Team Edward or Team
Oh,
Jacob?
yeah,
I
sorry.
don't think you
Oh yeah, you didn't
officially
tell us,
answered.
Jeff.
You know what? I'm team Bella needs to get a therapist.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
team, you
same.
know what? Why do you keep reducing women to romantic pairings in order to keep them relevant in books? Which I don't think we actually brought this up when we were talking about the Grecia verse at
Mhm.
first, is one of the reasons why we love it so much.
Yes.
Because, yeah, there's romance because people have feelings about things like that.
Yeah.
It's not a crime.
Right.
But is that the only reason you have these female characters here? No. But
Exactly.
do authors do that terribly? You
Yep.
bet. And some of them have names that rhyme with bowling, shall we say. I could be
Yeah.
talking about anybody right now, but
Anyone.
the point is,
Could be anyone.
please stop reducing female characters to romantic objects.
Yeah.
So I am Team Bella, is
Agreed.
what I
That's
am.
Well put.
Also, side tangent. So sorry.
Y'all's theme song.
You guys have a banger of a theme song. Props
That's
to y'all.
Jeff. Play it on 1.5
I wrote
speed,
that.
and that's like really a banger.
Okay.
Yeah, recommend everyone just listen to the pod if not just
Remix.
listen to the end of the full podcast if not just for the theme song. But
They complimented our theme song.
it's so good.
Yeah,
I
Jeff
loved it. I
made
was
that
like,
himself.
I listened to it. I was
I
like,
spent
oh,
like 13
dang.
years in music school, and my greatest musical accomplishment, apart from
Is
one
our theme
published
song.
academic paper, is the theme song I made for our podcast.
It's
So
gorgeous.
yeah.
It's
Good.
gorgeous. Well, thank you guys so much for
Yeah, thank
taking
you.
the time and dealing with our technical snafus. We've loved talking to you guys. This is
Yeah,
fantastic.
Super fun.
Yeah, let's not wait so long to get together again. We'll have you guys on our show.
Yeah,
Please,
yes.
anytime. I
Yeah.
have so
Gladly.
many thoughts about this series, and I will be updating you as I get through Six of Crows.
Yeah, I think we should have you get through Six of Crows first, so that way we can all like fully go off.
Yeah.
Good
because
point.
That's
true.
I feel like after that, you're gonna have a lot of feelings.
It is
Okay.
a
Like
deal,
a
and I'm
lot of
holding you to that. I
feelings.
will be on your podcast. Both of us will be.
Yeah.
Can't stop me now.
Sounds good.
Sorry,
Oh, yeah.
when I say
mean,
me,
oh, yeah.
I include you.
Oh yeah.
You are me. We are joined.
You are welcome.
Yeah,
And yeah, finish Six of Crows and potentially finish Crooked Kingdom, and then you will trust me. You will have a plethora of feelings to be sharing. Don't you worry.
Can't wait to experience those
Yeah.
feelings. Well, but before we
Yeah.
go, if you guys just want to shout out I know you guys have other projects. If you want to tell everyone about those, where they can find you guys on the
Any
socials what's that?
Nothing. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. But just where people can find Into the Fold, you guys, all your other projects.
So
Yeah,
into
so- Jeffrey?
we've obviously rehearsed this.
Yeah.
Jeffrey,
Wow.
I go first.
Oh.
We just did this. Remember? This is
That's
our
on
script.
our show. We are guests here.
Fine.
Take off your shoes.
I'm gonna take my earrings off, and then we're really gonna fight.
Ooh.
Well, that's
I'm gonna
serious.
take
Not
off
that
my
I-
Louboutins.
No,
He said like
no.
somebody who has Louboutins.
Yeah, I know. I don't have Louis Vuitton.
Louboutin.
Okay, so Jeff, where can people find us?
So if you want to follow us on social medias, our Instagram and Twitter are both Into the Fold Pod. Our Instagram has a lot more going on a lot of the time than
Mhm.
our Twitter does.
Yeah.
It's interesting how some mediums just tend to be more active for certain things. You never know. But Into the Fold can be found anywhere pods are cast, including YouTube.
Mm.
So just look for Into the Fold, a Greciaverse podcast. It should suggest that for you because apparently there's at least one other show called Into the Fold out there.
Mm-hmm.
But we are Into
Well,
the
it's
Fold,
called
a
Enter-
Greciaverse
Enter the-
podcast.
Oh yeah, Into the Fold. Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's like about
if you
mental
want
health.
Mm-hmm.
Who needs mental health
Yeah.
when you can have the Grecia
The
verse?
characters in all the books we have mentioned today, they all need it, honey.
It's
Definitely.
All of them.
They all have severe
Genuinely.
amounts of trauma they've experienced.
Yeah, and no one to talk to except for that guy who's just sitting in the corner who lubed up the window to get in.
Yep.
Meticulously crushing spiders to protect Bella,
Uh-huh.
like a
Because
like
that's
a hero.
what she needs protecting from,
R-
not the
right.
vampire that's sitting in the corner of her room. Oh, Edward
Tangents on
Cullen.
tangents.
Tangents on tangents on tangents. But yeah, so if anyone else wants to listen to us, like Jeff said, we are on all platforms where pods are cast. You can send us an email to at intothefoldpod@gmail.com. And if you like my dulcet tones specifically, you can find me over at Puffcast Pod, which is your Harry Potter happy place. And it's a podcast run by two Hufflepuffs who are just trying to create like a little happy Harry Potter fun space. And we try to keep it positive and fun. And that is Puffcast Pod. And that can be found anywhere where pods are cast. And that's also our social media handles too. So Into the Fold and Puffcast Pod. And we're happy to have anyone who wants to listen. And thank you guys for letting us join your show because this was so much fun.
Yeah,
So
no.
much fun.
Really enjoyed it.
Anytime. This is fantastic. We're kind of wrapping up this pod, but we're going to do a general young adult podcast for our next project.
Oh,
and,
fun.
And I believe what we're going to do first is a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe.
That's
Oh my
I
God.
love the series of
those.
unfortunate events.
good
Well,
because
because I've not read them, but Spencer has, so it'll be a nice.
You haven't
little
read?
flipper
Oh, that was one of the
reversal.
books that I read. Oh, yeah. I was like on pins and needles waiting for each of those books to come out. Oh boy,
Oh,
those
yeah.
are good.
so we'll be
The
hitting you up,
sass
guys.
level in
for
those
that.
books.
Oh God, yeah, we'll get there.
Lemony Snicket. 2 thumbs up for Lemony Snicket.
Oh,
For
he's-
sure.
Oh, I love him so much. He's so funny. He's so great. But end of the podcast. I will let you guys go. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll keep in contact. We're both Hufflepuffs, so
No, I'm a Ravenclaw. What the fuck?
as a Hufflepuff, I'm making her be a Hufflepuff.
Hi.
Well, I can come on your show then. But anyway,
Okay. Well, we encourage anyone from any house
Thank
to
you.
join us. So yes, I think that at some point, right now we're kind of just as a side note, Mel and I are like very booked up with guests at this exact moment in
No
time.
worries.
April and March tend to be like, for some bizarre reason, like really busy
Interesting.
for that podcast specifically.
Hmm.
But we would love to have you on
Yeah.
probably in the later half of the year
no worries.
when we actually have open spots.
Anytime, we'd love to do it. Jeff, did you have anything else
Yeah.
you wanted to shout out?
Yes, I do. I was just sticking to Into the Fold since that's what brought us here. But you know what? Since we can promote anything that we are a part of, I am in the camp
for
of
it, Jeff.
people who not only unashamedly but enthusiastically enjoys the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them universe. And we have another film coming out in that universe
we do.
very soon. So if you are as excited about that as I am also a host and social media correspondent for Speak Beastie, which is MuggleNet.com's Fantastic Beasts podcast. I actually got to do recently my first celebrity interview, since we've spoken about those today. I got to interview Joshua Shea, who played young Newt Scamander in Crimes of Grindelwald.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was a fun interview because it was 6 a.m. where I was. I'd been up all night working. I got my COVID booster the day before, so I was fever-ridden and exhausted, and apparently
Living your best life,
didn't
Jeff.
come across in the interview at all, and that is a
That's
miracle.
That's a pro
That
move.
is, yeah.
That's awesome.
So I should get some kind of fever-inducing booster jab before every interview I do, apparently, because apparently that's when I am really on.
Hey,
Interesting.
adversity,
Maybe,
you know, yeah. Just-
compensating, but like
yeah.
doing an
like-
extra good job.
Like the Michael Jordan flu game, the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Just put you in like a
Sport.
weird headspace that you can only access in very specific scenarios.
Yeah.
I'll tell you where it puts me is incredibly focused and thinking, please, dear Lord, don't let them be able to tell that I have a fever and I'm totally exhausted right now.
I love it. Well,
I love it.
thank you guys. I'm sure and excited that we'll be in touch in the future. This is great.
Totes.
Yeah.
I'll
No
let you-
doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
We'll see
And
y'all
we'll see
later.
you soon.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Okay, awesome.
Thank
Bye.
Guys, thank you for having us.
Yeah,
This
thank
was really
you.
fun.
you. Bye.